Hi, thank you so much for joining us today on this show about sacred sites. And with me today is Keoni Alvarez.
Mahalo,
thank you so much for coming here today to talk to us. And you've written this book, Kapu, Sacred Hawaiian Burials. It's a work of love. And could you tell us how you got into this?
Well, ever since I was 8 years old, my family discovered a Hawaiian burial cave in the Puna district. And ever since then, we just took on the responsibility, as stewards to protect that site from being destroyed by anything or anybody going there. In order to preserve something like that, I had to get approval from, the state because we needed to be recognized as a cultural descendant to it, to give a voice. So it's not an easy process to be recognized as a descendant to the burial cave. So you have to go through that process of making sure that you qualify to be a descendant or to speak in behalf of the burials.
And what was the outcome of all of this work?
The outcome, for us, when we discovered the cave, we just wanted to protect it, making sure that, in Malama and take care, making sure that people don't go in there because we knew that there were burials in it.
And people would desecrate it and do heavens knows what if they found it.
That was our whole thing, was just to make sure that nobody goes there and go into the cave, and just like how you said, just respecting the burial. But it wasn't an easy process to do that. It took years for us to be recognized, to make sure it's all documented and things. But going through that whole process, I realized that the state, it's very difficult to preserve something that we as Hawaiians know that it should be preserved. This is an automatic thing. Everybody knows throughout Hawaii, especially our people, because we know our traditions and our culture, is that burials are throughout the islands. Burials are everywhere.
I'm sure along the way, talking to all of these agencies and talking to all of the kupuna, you learned an awful lot. One thing I noticed is that iwi are all over. They're at Sherwood's, the most ancient ones that we know of. They're along this line and that line, and then in tubes up in the mountains. And could you tell us why it is that it's not like Western culture where they're all in the cemetery?
Well, having an understanding and learning about our Hawaiian culture, I realized that burials are throughout Hawaii. And we accepted that because that is part of tradition and culture. And that's how we as Hawaiians did things here.
That's how it was allowed. You did it that way.
And Hawaii was islands, it's in the middle of the Pacific. There was Polynesians who came here, our Hawaiian people who practiced their traditions, practiced their beliefs for thousands of years.
And one of the traditions is of the ahapua'a, and that is your home, from the mountain to the ocean. Exactly. That is your home. And we understand you get buried at your house, in your home, whether you want, up here in the mountain or down near the sea.
Yeah, and that was a part of our lifestyle. That was part of the division of the lands. And at that time, the ali'is or the chiefs would have different konahikis or different stewards to take care of those lands. And that was part of the responsibility, is to make sure that it was taken care of. But within those districts would have burials, it would be their families, and people would find burials there or find where they used to live. Hawaiian culture is very unique. It's a very beautiful culture. We had traditions and practices that we still continue today. So it's
they
great.
value the strong person. I used to work near Papakolea, and I was talking to someone, an older person, who was telling me how in Hawaiian culture they wanted the child to become strong. They let them go out into the world to learn about it so that they develop the strengths within themselves. And that is an integral part of the Hawaiian culture, which I think is great. Another thing I noticed, there are so many different kinds of burials. Now we have put them in the ground, or cremation. And Hawaiians, could you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, in learning about our Hawaiian burial cave and trying to protect it, one thing I had to do was, give a voice to our burials who was in the cave, because I wanted to protect our Ohana burial cave. And part of that was to go out and to learn more and to kind of educate myself, because I would have to speak to these different boards and let them know of what I learned. And throughout Hawaii, there are different methods that I learned, you know, from our elders, cultural practitioners. And I didn't just learn from Hawaii Island, which I'm from. I learned throughout all the islands I traveled. And I learned from different kupunas. And according to different areas, they practice the burial practices differently. The simple burials, or most popular or common burials, would be to dig a hole and put our burials in them. And then you have some burials, you'd find them near the ocean, you know, and they'll do a Aloha style. And most likely they would use the salt to pack the body, and they would embalm the burials to preserve it, you know. And part of preserving was a whole belief system of keeping, you know, our burials here, you know, to be with the families. It also has beliefs into the afterlife, you know, and that was very, Hawaiians believed in the things that they did because they did have gods and different guardians that they worship. Another one was in the forest, you know, if people lived in the forest, which Hawaiians live. So you have different ways, and they would actually use the pulu to preserve the body.
The herbs and the plants.
Yeah, so it was very interesting. So it's with the Hawaiian culture, you know, there's a lot of protocol that went with it. You know, it was something very serious. And this was something that wasn't practiced, you know, to everybody. You know, only a certain few would be partaking and having a hands-on kind of thing and learning about what it took to do that.
It's very complicated knowledge.
Yeah, it's complicated, but it's also respectful, you know. This is somebody's afterlife. It's their last wishes of how they want to cross over and join whoever they feel, you know, of what they believed in. In Hawaii, there's thousands of Hawaiian gods and goddesses. So whatever they choose, the family who practiced it just respected what the last wishes of the deceased was. And it's just sad today that you can see, you know, people are just, you know, second guessing that, you know, saying that, well, you know, there's no tombstone, there's no markers, so, you know, let's just dig them up. We know who's buried there. Yeah, we know that there's family connections. Even though there's no tombstone, that's our culture. That's how we did things. So it's just recognizing that and accepting that, like any other culture, any other country has that.
Right. How would these people who are saying these things, you know, making these criticisms feel about someone digging up their family bones and, you know, disrespecting them? My goodness. You were saying something about the emu style of dealing with the bones.
Yeah.
Because it was for sanitary reasons.
Right. The whole afterlife things really intrigues a lot of people. And that's what I noticed, you know, in even talking about these discussions and stuff. For me, it's very personal. You know, I don't like even sharing about it because I know how sacred it is to our Hawaiian people. But just to bring awareness, this is part of what I do.
To become aware
to become aware and what to do when things like this happen. But that was part of a process too, was to preserve the bones and to make sure that, you know, it's going to be in safekeeping. And part of that was part of that practice. And just like today we have pictures, the bones was the same with our Hawaiian people. That's what we had. The bones was our ancestors. Was like, this is grandpa.
It's a reminder of.
And you can read it on accounts that, you know, it was distributed to different families because people live in different areas, you know. And so it was a very unique culture, you know, to learn that each island had their own thing, and they all had similar practices. It was just according to the terrains, but how they utilize each, you know, thing that they had in order to preserve, because they wanted to keep them here as much as they could, to show respect, to show aloha and malama.
Right.
You know?
And respect and ohana are very important values in Hawaii. You know, I remember when I was growing up, I'm 75 years old, and when I was growing up in the 40s and 50s, people had aloha for everybody. You know, it's even tourists, you think of nowadays how different it is. And tourists were thought of as guests. People were nice to them. They wanted to make sure they had a good time. People were always very nice to each other. And you know, the thing about you never locked your back door because they were all neighbors. And neighbors took care of each other, not just family and friends. And so aloha is and the distribution of bones so that you remember this family member. That is an important part of the culture, the connections between people.
Aloha was something that Hawaiians truly believed in. It wasn't just a word. Aloha is a lifestyle that we live by, and how you treat people.
Right. I remember it was that way when I was a kid.
Part of our culture was, even if you desecrated a burial, right? Part of that, it was something that you wouldn't even think about trying to do. You know, it meant your life. There was no litigation about, oh, well, I'm sorry that I made a mistake to go into that cave and or grab that item. It meant your life, and that's how serious they were. And then when it came to Hawaiian Kingdom days, they put that into law, into their democratic law, about how important it was to respect the burials. And in those days, in the 1800s, when Queen Liliu and our royalty were, in those times, it was $1,000 fine and 2 years hard labor. In the 1800s, that if you equivalent that today, that's like $1 million today. So that kind of just shows you already of how they felt about desecrating burials. It was a serious thing in Hawaii. And after learning that, I have an understanding of, till that day, they respected our burials.
Right. Everybody around the world wants, they want their loved ones treated with respect. I mean, even elephants respect their ancient ones. But cultural attitudes are different from one place to another. I remember there was one tribe, the last man in the tribe alive was horrified when he saw the scientists that he was living with were examining a dead body and looking at all the muscles. He thought, oh my gosh, how disrespectful. Can you talk about how the cultural attitudes of the Hawaiians are?
Well, you know, throughout the world, you have everybody who practice their burial traditions differently. Some cultures, you have them that they really care, and malama, like us as Hawaiians, we care about our burials. We respect it to keep it, you know, hidden, so that, you know, that is a respectful time for when they passed on. And you have other cultures who doesn't care about them. You know, they can just display the bones and they have no affection, nothing about them, and but you know, that's their culture.
Yeah. How would you like it if your mother's skull was exhibited, as if it's sort of some kind of circus freak?
In other cultures, they might display them. You know, maybe that's how they do things. They're used to that. But here in Hawaii is what matters to us. You know, this is our culture. Culture is what separates us from anybody else, and that's what makes every human unique.
Some people question it, but could you tell us why you think it's very important to protect the iwi?
Our ancestors' bones are very sacred. It stems back to beliefs and traditions. Hawaiians has been here over 1,000 years. So that tradition has continued on past generation after generation and continue to practice it, oral tradition. And we still practice it and we accept that. It's very important because it is kapu, it's sacred. If you cannot understand the word kapu, then you won't ever have an understanding of what aloha is. You know, for us as Hawaiians, if you can treat someone with aloha when they have passed, imagine how much more you're going to treat somebody who's living.
Kapu, to my mind, is something that you need to respect, and everyone needs to understand that they need to respect certain things. I mean, culture is the connection between people. Culture tells you who you are, and people want to be respected. And the kapu is, it's the connection to respect, and that's what you're talking about. If you don't understand kapu and respecting people, you cannot understand aloha.
You know, I never thought in my lifetime I would ever see kapu and aloha together.
Yeah, I never thought of that either, but now that you bring it up, I agree with you.
For burials, there was no problem that it was so rampant throughout the islands that they needed to put a kapu on burials. Today, yes, there is a kapu on burials because people are going there and desecrating them. you know. But in Hawaiian Kingdom days, there was no such thing as burials where kapu, you know, everybody just knew that was the culture, respected that. Today, that's why I had labeled my book Kapu, is because everybody's going there and desecrating something that they have no clue about.
And that's why you say you have to protect the EV. And the thing is, I mean, in Western culture, you know that you don't go into a graveyard and dig up all the bones and just throw them all around. But they don't transition that to Hawaii and the EV kupuna.
You know, in every ahupua'a, even though they're unmarked burials, there are families who's connected to the burials if the state looks. That's the problem today, is that the state government, they know that this is our culture, our tradition, and they don't practice and uphold the culture and tradition in a respectful way for the Hawaiian people, knowing and recognizing that there was a Hawaiian existence that was here.
And I'm sorry to say, I'm going to be a little critical here. I was told by an archaeologist, yes, there are archaeologists who are hired, but it's just a job. And unfortunately, some people do not do it very well, so that they may put their stamp of approval on something, but he knows, and we were, you know, talking, and he said a lot of times they do not do their job, and that's where the problem comes in. That's what you're referring to.
And you're talking about archaeologists who's coming from a foreign place, coming to Hawaii and telling us as Hawaiians of what our archaeology is and why they did things the way they do. And they can't even pronounce who the Hawaiian gods and what the relationships are and how this land's connection with another. But yet they want to tell us what are the practices and how they're positioned and their beliefs of it. When we as Hawaiians know already our culture, we know why they did things. And if we don't know, we aloha that and respect that, to keep them there and respect. Maybe we might not learn it now, but that's in due time we can learn about it. But in due time doesn't mean that we got to dig them up right now and figure out, oh, okay, why did they have that spear with them? Why did they have a canoe in the cave? You know, that's nobody's business why they did things. That's aloha. That is showing respect to our ancestors for what we have as Hawaiians has been taught so many generations. So it's interesting to see foreign archaeologists coming here, just like Egypt, and it's happening here in Hawaii, and it's really sick and it's really disturbing.
Yes, it is, because sometimes it has to do desecrating things, if not for archaeological reasons, for historical reasons. Has so much to do with, for instance, at Sherwood's, to do with development, and some other places along the rail for somebody's profit. So they put those values above the values of connection and aloha and history and valuing a culture. That's basically what it's about. You know, to desecrate EV kupuna, that's what it comes down to.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think, you know, a lot of people, they feel that, you know, our burials are insignificant. And, you know, sometimes people feel that, you know, you have to build on something to make it valuable. You know, when you have something untouched and beautiful and kept in its natural and historic state, it makes it way more valuable than if you're gonna desecrate it. You know, one thing about burials is once you desecrate it, you can never put it together again. And that's what we as Hawaiians know, is that once you bulldoze and dig up and remove things, you can never find out for sure what the purpose was and how important and valuable that person was or the place was, because they didn't give that time in order for us as Hawaiians to decide what is the treatment of it, or if we should even go further into it. You know, burials is just aloha. I can't, you know, if you can respect burials, like I said, then a lot of things wouldn't have happened, and a lot of things would be preserved today. You know, and there's good reasons maybe why our burials are all over this place, is to preserve what we have left. It's a sensitive issue to us as Hawaiians, and our iwi and our kupunas and our ancestors know that, and we'll fight for that. And we've continued to do it.
Well, I'm glad that you will continue to fight for it, because that is what will help save it. You know, that's probably the only thing that will help save it, for people to stand up and to say, this is important to us.
It's a humanity thing.
Yes.
Everybody in the world will one day have to face or know of someone who passed away. And you would never ever, until you're in that situation when somebody wants to desecrate that, then you'll speak up. But what I'm trying to do is just realize how important burials are, and realizing the rights of today and how the next generation are preserving that and being more aware of it. Everybody has, you know, like their burial cave. Like, for instance, this is something that I want to protect, but there's many more things that we want to protect to keep us and humanity, you know, working together.
And safe and thriving.
And everybody is connected with that. Everybody has family. Everybody has someone who passed away. So it's not a far-fetched idea that, no, we shouldn't respect burials. You know, this is something close to home. Everybody has something or someone that they love passed away, whether it be their mother, their father, grandparent, their own baby, whatever. You know, for us, we just know. And we don't even have to put a name on it, because we know that's our ohana, you know. And part of our being as a island-wide ohana is standing up for them and speaking up for them is the best thing. Then you can get other families that, oh, you know, thank you so much, you know, because that's my ohana. Now I can carry on the responsibility.
This ohana thing, you have people talking to each other after a while. They would, oh, you're my cousin.
Right.
It's a small island. And oh, you're related to so, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's closer than they know.
Yeah. And you'll be very, very surprised. And for me, being on this journey was an awesome experience. It's something that is very priceless to me. It's something that I thank all the kupuna that gave me that opportunity and gave me their time and their story to share with people about it. And that's what I'm creating a documentary, which has taken a long time to do, but it was well worth it. It wasn't just about a film of me doing it, but it was about self-discovery, learning about myself, learning about our tradition and how valuable it is.
So other people can go through the same journey.
Yeah, and they're going to experience their own. But this was something that I didn't ask for. It was given to me, and I realized what I had, and you just know what is the right thing to do. And you speak up regardless, and later on you find out why you do the things you do after you do more research and genealogy. And it's really, I would recommend it for a lot of people to go ahead and do some research about your family.
Oh yeah.
Because it shows you, it shows you why you are the way you are, and it's very important. And because you can bring change too.
Thanks for all your work.
Oh, mahalo nui, and having me on your show. Aloha no kako. My name is Keoni Alvarez, and I live in the islands of Hawaii. Currently, I'm working on a very important film project entitled Kapu, Sacred Hawaiian Burials. This project is in dedication to our native Hawaiian ancestors' burials. Over 20 years ago, my family and I have discovered a cave while exploring in the forest near our home. In this cave was iwi, or bones of Hawaiians. Ever since that discovery, my family and I have took on the responsibility as stewards to protect that precious site from being destroyed by development. This documentary film is of my journey, learning from our Hawaiian elders about the traditional burial practices of Hawaiians. In the Hawaiian culture, human skeletal remains are kapu. And what that means is, it's not to be touched, it's not to be spoken of, it's not to be displayed, it is kapu, or sacred. This is a very important film project to our Hawaiian culture, and your donation will help me to reach my goal in completing it. I thank you so much for your time. Mahalo for watching. My name is Keoni Alvarez. In my culture, I guard and protect something precious, It's the root of the Hawaiian existence. Today, I'm going to do some research about Hawaiian burials.
Burials were sacred. Burials were important. The body was prepared.
They knew every bone in your body and every muscle and how it linked. They didn't know that by just putting it on the side. They went through it.
The night was still a protection for them, for the burials, for people who were burying them.
And Hawaiian laws were so clear and so easy to understand. You knew if you were or were not a kapu breaker. And you also know the penalty for kapu breaking was death.
With development booming on the Big Island, the Puna district is primed for progress. But some native Hawaiians say it's running roughshod over ancestral remains.
And everybody from all around the world are starting to buy properties and develop them.
Federal prosecutors charged 2 Big Island merchants with stealing more than 150 repatriated Hawaiian artifacts.
This is the kind of things that the Western culture do. The Westerners come here and they know this is sacred land. The problem for the people that's going to buy this land is they got to deal with the descendants.
This mound is actually from all the burials that they found in Waikiki, from all the development, from all the hotels and all the shopping centers. They decided to grab all these bones and then put them in one area. This is a United States practice. This is not a Hawaiian practice. In Hawaiian culture, you would never ever do such a thing. And just because they make it beautiful on the outside, that's a sick thing about it. That's what makes it worse, actually. Is they making it look like it's okay and it's not.
And the state and the county allowed this to happen. So bad, they even destroy our burials to put the house on of our iwi kupuna, our ancestors' bones.
We got to do something. And I don't think that people, or maybe people think it's all okay. It's not okay. You got to tell the world that you come to Hawaii, we Hawaiians care about our history, our tutus, our past, and our iwi especially.
People don't get that. This is Hawaii. Before anybody came here, we had a population of people who lived here thousands of years before anybody came here. And then they're gonna tell us how we gotta treat our burials and that's not sacred to us anymore. And then twist our own people to think that way. And then the traditional practitioners who's really trying to uphold them, making them look like the criminals, making them look like the bad people. It's so messed up.